I swear to God, as a video editor, if I see one more job asking me if I play golf in order to freaking edit golf videos, I'm gonna peel my skin off like a little Russian doll until all you find underneath is the little talking fetus from the film Blonde. Or maybe the evil fetus from Dune 2, you know, whichever. Comment below, which fetus should I be after I peel my skin several times until that's all that's left of me?
Clean up on aisle 4.
Anyways, you know, sometimes I make mistakes. Probably not as often as you watching this, but I do it sometimes. And recently, I made the mistake of being curious enough to see people's opinion on a pretty good film that I liked. And this pretty good film is called How to Have Sex. But not just like, you know, professional reviewers with their job is analyze a film and blah blah blah, and they might be paid. No, I like to see what the little peasants are saying. I want to see people's unwarranted opinions for some reason. Some keywords: wild, hedonistic, emotional. You know, I don't think the film's hedonistic at all. If I were to say a hedonistic film, it would be like Spring Breakers, which traumatized me.
What's that?
Like, I was not old enough to watch it, and I did. And that's what I would call hedonistic. For me, hedonistic means trauma for my brain and my eyeballs. And for others, that's just a good time. Yes, how to have sex. Because I know that. Expert. I still don't believe British people are real. I still think it's all an act. And they are just a bunch of extras that broke their way out of the Harry Potter films.
What excellent boiled potatoes.
What the film really is about, because the title is obviously attention grabbing, so it's obviously the advertising. People are probably gonna go, ooh, it is late. But actually the film is a lot more serious than you kind of would expect, or maybe if you're expecting it, well, you're right, you know. At the end of the day, it is about sexual assault. And it does, in general, talk about consent and the ways in which usually women, but it doesn't have to be women, obviously, but usually the way women are conditioned does make it quite difficult to speak up and truly like vocalize when to say no. And there's so many just scenes that made my skin crawl, and my instincts, my red flags, it was going off, bro. Like, everything about it, I was like, this is horrible. This is not consensual. And I was watching it, I was like, oh, I'm so glad this movie's made. This is a really important topic. And I hope that some people that never have had to experience being coerced, or just these general like gray areas are like really like disturbing, but people like people always find a way to like blame victims. So this is like, okay, finally a movie that I think does a really good job of like making you feel in the moment with the main character and seeing how uncomfortable it can all really be in these like gray areas that's not consensual. Glad someone's making this film. This is important. And then I read people's opinion on the film. It was a mistake doing that. And I guess I have to spoil this detail of the film for you to truly kind of see how like horrifying these reviews are. And if you don't think it's horrifying, then I think you should look into that, buddy. Like, there's a male character that's been really uncomfortable, really aggressive, and there's like an underlying tone of violence in the way that he tries to engage with this girl. And it's very coercive, it's very aggressive, it's so clear in her body language and her facial expressions. And the fact that she's like not really vocalizing any enthusiasm or any sort of consent, that obviously it's assault. And then this second time in the film that it occurs, she's quite literally, she's asleep when this individual begins. To a lot of people, that would be extremely clear that this is not consensual. That's what you would hope. Blah 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 is a coming-of-age film, British film about these three British teenagers who go on an end-of-examinations holiday for drinking, clubbing, and hooking up in what should be the best summer of their lives. One of them faces the biggest anxiety of her life, And this is her story. I was worried after reading the plot that this might be a formulaic plot, but I was pleasantly surprised by the treatment of the subject and acting performances of the 3 lead actresses. Okay, seems normal, right? Another good part of the film is that it doesn't preach or forces the viewer to judge the rights and wrongs. It explores the dilemma from a linear perspective, and that's a fresh take in the coming-of-age genre. Alright guys, I'm starting off a little bit relaxed, because in a way I guess that review's not that bad, except it feels a bit weird that this man is saying that the film doesn't judge or preach, which when you're talking about like showcasing assault and consent, it feels a bit weird that your concern would be that there would be preaching or judgment on something like that going on. But maybe he meant on the part of the main character girl. Okay, maybe that's what he means. I was worried this might be another hackneyed and bludgeoned hit job on the ostensible toxicity of straight white males. That seems to be par for the course in television and film these days, but instead I was delighted to see nuanced, mature, compelling, and believable writing. Many of us have experienced something like this, or at least we imagine we've been close to where it may happen. It was a great film, perfectly constructed and acted, a clever parable, not a dumb lecture based on current culture war propaganda. The one about this is like, it's giving weird vibes. He's saying the film is good, but then he's like, it's not culture war. It's not just judging straight white males. Everyone wants to judge straight white males. I wonder why. James, you're right. Like, it's kind of really mean and weird how out of nowhere, just for no unprompted reason, everyone just wants to judge straight white males. They do nothing wrong.
Please like and subscribe.
I guess this film is not judging the guy that assaults a girl while she's sleeping. And like James said, many of us have experienced something like this. And dear God, is that kind of a horrifying thing to see from a man that's like concerned about the culture wars and is saying like, don't judge straight white males. When a straight white male in this film did assault a girl, now once again I can give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he means on the receiving end that maybe all of us have in some ways as humans stumbled across this learning of what consent means to each other when engaging in intimacy. And I do think at the end of the day there is a spectrum of this kind of behavior, and that I do think kind of everyone like does have learning to do in the same way that you kind of have to also learn empathy. Like, it's something that everyone should do and constantly like work on and think about each other and care about each other, otherwise you're gonna be like a literal monster. But I have a little inkling feeling, due to the rest of the context of this review, that James might be identifying with the straight white male that assaults the girl in this film. Only moral I got out of the story is nothing about consent, unless if it talks about immaturity and Trent-driven youngsters. Maybe I'm simply ignorant. Yeah, you might be. And I need someone to debate my views. The only thing I see are 1. Selfish, sex-driven guys that don't know how to have sex. If that's the story the director wanted to talk about, then it makes sense to me. But I cannot make any sense of any of the professional critic reviews when they talk about consent. An inexperienced young woman that makes wrong choices. Oh my gosh. Implies consent in many... That's me ripping off my skin, guys. Implies consent in many many different ways. Okay, so I think this is some old fart that like has 2 working brain cells.
I love the young people.
And this is just what I want to tell myself, like maybe men like this that think this way are like dying off. That's like what I can tell myself so I can rest easy at night. I mean, he calls himself old, doesn't he? Yeah, he says youngsters. I mean, there's some weird 22-year-old guys that will talk like this for some reason anyways. But dear God, let's hope this guy is someone's weird grandpa that watched this film thinking he'd have a good time. Seeing little teenage girls go partying, and then he's like, oh God, people are talking about consent? Oh, they're judging the straight white males? Oh, what is this world coming to? So this is what I think he might sound like. Inexperienced young woman that makes wrong. Okay, I'm trying to do an old man voice. Old man, an inexperienced young woman. Why does... Okay, I'm gonna stop with the old man voice. He sounds more like an inexperienced... Sorry, guys. I left my Juilliard diploma at home. Implies consent in many different ways, and being passive about her situation, not respecting her real feelings, and actually giving consent to everything happening around her. So I guess implied consent and giving consent is the same thing to old man Angelus. This reminds me of how everyone has stories about their grandmas and their like aunties getting married at 13 to their like 27-year-old grandpa, and they're like, yeah, he took me out of my house and forced me to marry him, and we've been together for 40 years. And now everyone's like, oh my God, women don't want to get married anymore, people don't want to have babies. Why? Maybe we should stop talking about consent and revoke women's option to choose what they want to do with their life. And yeah, then they'll keep getting married to old farts and having the little old fart babies. It doesn't have to be every man. But you're conditioned as a man think this way. So far, all the comments have been James Angelus's like male names. There hasn't been the girly pops being like, as far as I can tell, that's my consent. No, the girls are not in here. They're nowhere to be seen. I assure you, it's a bunch of horny fellas that thought, oh yeah, teen girl, let me go see her in a bikini. And they're like, oh my God, we have to empathize with her. I did not sign up for this. I.e. first sex scene. Man asks for consent. I'm being dumb to get through this because I can't get through this if I'm not being dumb, guys, because it's genuinely terrifying that people really think this way. It's up. And he gets it. Even if it sounds reluctant. You know, crazy thought here. Part of empathizing, part of consent is not just if she's screaming, dear God, no! Maybe if a girl's not enthusiastic, maybe if your partner is being reluctant, that should be a sign. And this is what really tickles my, not tickles my pickle, it scratches my pickle, is that like this old man Jenkins Angelus fella and like plenty of other people, I think they really want to pretend that they don't know what consent is. They don't know what empathy is. Or just the simple act of if there's a person in front of you, you can tell from their body language, from the tone of their voice, from their general just like emotions being emoted, you can tell how they're feeling. And crazy thought here, you wrote it in your own review, reluctant. If it's reluctant, it's not consent, boys and girls. I will say it. It's not. And it's really f***ing creepy that this guy feels so emboldened to write this creepy thing for everyone to see.
How embarrassing!
Second, he pushed for it. He pushed for it, but he was still respectful about ensuring they are at the same page. I don't know, this guy sounds like he's an assaulter, and he's like probably relating to some scenes and being like, no, that was not assault. You know, when that girl was being reluctant, and you know when I was pushing girl, it's still respectful to push someone to do something they don't want to do. Her excuse for being distant was about people being in the house? No, I'm sorry, I don't believe this. I'm not gonna buy it because this is bullshit. This person knows they're literally exposing themselves and then pretending in the next sentence to be like, I don't see how this is not consensual. You see, you just don't care and you don't want to acknowledge it. Like I said, this video will probably make also like just more sense, and you'll probably get just the kind of level of how terrifying this all is if you watch the film. And it's a good film, so watch it. You know, support the girly directors, and dear God, maybe write some reviews in here so I can read those instead of what the f all these creepy dudes are saying. But this is the last one I'll read for you fellas, so we can trauma bond. Because that's what this channel is all about, is for me to share the things I'd rather like wash my little pretty brain. Instead I'm gonna, you know, film it, edit it, and post it on YouTube so you too can be traumatized with me. I'm torn between giving it 2 or 3 stars, as I can appreciate a movie even if there's not much going on. But this was pretty boring, not gonna lie. At the end of the day, people are gonna have really close-minded opinions about what a movie should be and what institutes as interesting and engaging. This movie had a gorilla grip on me, and it was super interesting to see the dynamics of all the characters and the relationships. And if you think it's boring, then I don't necessarily think that makes you like a bad person. You probably just like have bad opinions on movies, but that's fine. But it doesn't end there. Of course, because why would it? Ultimately, I don't think the issue of consent in gray areas is very interesting. It's very low on the agenda for me.
Really, Winston? No, it's not interesting for you.
Saying that you don't think the issue of sexual consent is interesting and it's very low on the agenda is very sociopathic behavior, I gotta say. And I'm sorry to offend those that might actually have that disorder, but like, in the worst way possible, I think I find that like the most freaking insane and sociopathic thing to say. And like I mentioned earlier, and I probably will mention again, the audacity to freely share these absolutely insane, completely apathetic opinions about how you know what consent is, but you just don't care. It's pretty terrifying, and it's pretty disturbing, and it really shows how important this film is. But this film does the job. Critics are saying it. So it really goes to show that like there's so many times usually women, doesn't have to be women of course, but usually women are told like, why didn't she do this? Why didn't she do that? Why, you know, she did this. And at the end of the day, there's just countless examples such as this film and these reviews that's like, it doesn't matter what you do, bro. It doesn't matter if you write it on your freaking forehead in neon marker. It doesn't matter if you get a microphone and start screaming at it like the singer from Korn. It doesn't matter. They're still gonna be like, what? What? Oh, you said no? Well, I don't care. That's not really interesting to me. Consent's not interesting to me either. It can be respectful to push someone to do something they don't want to do. However, this does work as a kind of social commentary horror film of what very young British girls get up to when they go off to some island. Weird that the horror thing that he's perceiving is in the actions of the teenage British girls and not the older men that assault them. Oh my god, guys. I know I've been losing my mind this entire video, but actually I might actually lose my mind at the next sentence. That isn't a very positive outlook, is it? How dare I say such a thing? What point are we in the whole discourse of, you know, somehow consent is a discourse. Because of course, literally nothing can just be a universal truth. Everything is an opinion these days. Nothing can just like be like, yeah, you know, you shouldn't touch people and push people to do things they don't want to do. Apparently that's not a universal truth to many people. How are we at this point where if anyone talks about consent or has overall concern about like consent, it's not positive enough for you. I've seen people say this about individuals that don't like poor things. But I still respect the people that feel uncomfortable by poor things, even if there's certain things I didn't feel uncomfortable. So I think there's a reason why people feel uncomfortable. And part of, I think, positivity should also be the fact that people don't want to do what you want to do. That's important, and that's really kind of like the whole point, I think, is to just overall respect the different wants of different individuals. And you cannot impose like what you want onto others. And now that we're at this point, after, I think, normalizing so many things, which is not a bad thing to normalize, you know, like more liberated sort of like dating world or whatever it is, it's not bad. But if we're at the point where any criticism with people that are uncomfortable with certain scenes in films or concerned with the potential consent being portrayed, they're being called negative. We went wrong somewhere, to say the least. Like, the one spectrum we have, you know, shaming, which I think the 2010s to 2020s has been trying like really hard to go against the slut shaming that was like so prevalent in our culture prior. But I think in doing so, now we're almost at this opposite spectrum that's really weird, where it's like if anyone has any concern, like I mentioned, then they're just negative. And that's not okay. So that's what I have to say about that, guys. I hope you guys like seeing me lose my freaking mind. And as weird as it may be, even though I have to revisit those accursed words posted on a Google forum, hopefully, I don't know, we're sharing this together could lead to something good instead of it just like lurking in my brain and me being like, oh god, this is real. Watch the movie. It's a good movie. That is my review.
Please like and subscribe.